Shaun Haney here with RealAgriculture.com and RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Lots happening in the trade arena. One of the provinces that is definitely very much keeping its eye on what is happening, not only globally from a trade perspective, but some of the challenges that Canada has with the United States right now is the province of Saskatchewan. And joining us right now is the Minister of Trade and Export Development. It is Mr. Warren Kaeding. Warren, how are we doing?
Hi, Shaun. Well, it's early in the morning, and so far, so good.
Now, I believe you're off to Singapore later today. What's going on there?
Correct. Going to Vietnam, Singapore. We've got a few trade shows where there's kind of introducing Canada to Singapore. We've got a number of meetings set up with industry groups, with ag groups. So just again, selling Saskatchewan to Vietnam and to Singapore and the related areas.
Do you feel added pressure to add market access and improve trading relationship with some of these other countries, given what's happening between Canada and the U.S. right now?
Well, it's interesting with Saskatchewan. I mean, we're very much export-dominated province here, and we're probably the least dependent on the U.S. right now. So we have done a significant amount of work in developing these markets outside of the U.S. I mean, don't get me wrong, the U.S. is a very, very valuable partner to us and certainly really appreciate the integration that we've got. But we have 9 trade offices around the world right now and definitely doing a lot of work with them. And we need to continue that. As we say, it's pedal to the metal and just making sure that we're introducing Saskatchewan to every opportunity we can around the world.
Yet, you look at some of the commodities, potash, canola, for example, very reliant on the U.S. market. We've been hearing about a real speed up in terms of potash shipments, for example, to the United States to get ahead of potential tariffs and the threat of them. Is that kind of trading activity something you've been hearing about from some of your constituents?
Yes, we have. We've actually heard about other commodities, oats, flax, yellow mustard, getting into position in time. Haven't heard much about live cattle because we have a significant integrated market with live cattle, but certainly in a lot of the commodities, we're hearing a bit of a ramp up, kind of the pre-tariff talk, and then in the reprieve as well, we're starting to hear more about some ramping up of inventories.
Bit of a double-edged sword there. In terms of, doesn't that just increase the trade deficit?
Yes, it does. And we're going to hate to see the numbers, I guess, at the end of the year as to what those monthly import-export numbers look like.
Okay, so this week we saw the premiers go to D.C. I guess from your perspective as somebody that's focused in trade day in and day out for the province of Saskatchewan, what does the message, do you believe, need to be to some of our peers in the U.S.?
Well, the message we've certainly taken so far with elected officials, Premier's been doing a significant amount of work contacting governors and elected people in the various states, especially the key trading states that Saskatchewan does business with, to get the message down right down to the ground level, to the customer, the consumer, to the producer, as to what tariffs how they're going to affect them. We've all had the concerns in the last couple of years through, high inflation and affordability, and ultimately getting that message down to who is buying the product in the end, how this is going to affect them. You add 25% to an input, say like potash, and automatically could add an extra $4 to $6 per acre in an input cost in an already tight market.
One of the scenarios that has been put forth is, okay, so let's just pick on potash for a second, okay, or really any resource or energy type product. There's a lot of talk, less of a tariff for those kinds of goods, or an exemption for those tariffs. Is Saskatchewan in favor of the mechanism of them putting on like an export tariff on those goods to get it to that full 25%, like all the other goods, to try to change some of the U.S. behavior? Or what's your position on that?
Well, our position really is tariffs are they're not going to help anyone, either side of the border. Tariffs or counter-tariffs. I mean, that's really part of the discussion that Premier and ourselves have been having with all of the elected officials, stakeholder groups across the border, is that tariffs really do not benefit anyone. They just increase the cost on both sides. So whatever the input cost is going to be, or whatever the input is going to be, you add 25% to that, and ultimately it's the consumer that's going to lose, both sides of the border.
Right now, there's a lot of talk again, we've been here before, but there's a lot of talk again about interprovincial trade barriers and how we need to open up domestic trade within Canada. Not going to solve all of our problems. That's not replacing the U.S. market on most things that are exported. Is this a real thing, Mr. Kaeding, or is it all talk and a lack of action?
Well, with some jurisdictions, it certainly is a big thing. When the Canadian Free Trade Agreement was signed in 2017, Saskatchewan was one of 2 or 3 provinces that had the least amount of exceptions, the least amount of carve-outs in that Canadian Free Trade Agreement, which really supported the idea that we are open to trade here. I mean, we still have some issues. I know just last week we were working on, the direct-to-consumer sales of alcohol. Is there some opportunities that we can do to support that side of things? We know we have local abattoirs. So we'd love to be able to sell meat across the border into Manitoba or Alberta. Right now, we don't have, a similar regulatory process that allows our small abattoirs to be able to do business in those provinces. We're working towards trying to remove those and give them that opportunity. We have some regulatory issues. I live right by the Manitoba border. We have a oilseed crush plant just across the border. There's an issue with safeties, how farm vehicles are safetied in Manitoba versus Saskatchewan. So there's some regulatory issues that we also need to overcome that would enhance the free flow of goods back and forth across the border. So there's a number of small issues, regulatory issues, as well as some bigger trade issues that, yes, we need to get in front of. But I'd say, Shaun, the biggest concern we've got is the federal government has the largest amount of exceptions by far. And we need them to also lead by example and start removing a number of those exceptions that will allow that freer movement of goods and services across borders.
Now, to wrap up, just want to swing back to the trade mission you're about to go on into Vietnam and Singapore. What does a good outcome look like on a trip like this?
Well, on a trip like this, let's use a crop metaphor. We're planting the crop. We are planting the seeds of trade in Vietnam and Singapore and the areas that they also, have relationships there. So we're going to be talking to industry there to talk about some of the opportunities that, first of all, find out what they are looking for. What opportunities are they looking for in a trade initiative? What are they looking at? Food security, energy security. How can we help them achieve the goals that they've got for their countries? And then ultimately outline, how we believe we've got some of the food, fuel, fertilizer services that can support what they're trying to accomplish in their country. So we're planting the seeds, and then throughout the summer, we'll continue to nurture those relationships through our trade offices. And then, in a year or two's time, fully expect we'll have MOUs, we'll have, different agreements that we'll be able to facilitate. Or if nothing else, we've seen Company A get together with Company B here in Canada, and they've worked on a great trade agreement between them.
We've been talking to Warren Kaeding. He is the Minister of Trade and Export Development for the province of Saskatchewan. Minister Kaeding, thanks a lot for joining us here today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Shaun. Thanks for your interest.